Hello again, mini mates, and welcome to another episode of MiniMatters. Today we're joined by mini painting legend Mark Lifton. And Mark's been winning at the Golden Demon for the last 2 decades, so today we get a chance to talk to him about that and his experience, and also what the competition was like back at the beginning and how it's changed over the last 20 years. We also get to talk to him about his inspiration, where he gets his ideas from, his biggest influences, and the many he's most proud of. So if that sounds interesting, stay tuned.
MiniMatters, a miniature painting podcast.
Hi Mark, and welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Peter.
I've known you for quite some time now, but for anyone who doesn't know you and hasn't seen any of your models before, can you just give us a bit of an introduction to you and your input into the hobby and how long you've been doing things? That'd be great.
Yeah, well, I think I probably started off as an Airfix junkie, so I can still remember all of the HO00 stuff and buying every single tank going and building all of that sort of stuff. And that's really what kicked me off in the hobby and all things miniature. But then I think it took quite a while to get around to Games Workshop. Yeah. Mid-80s, buying, I think I sent off for the blue catalogue out of the back of Military Modelling. That was the equivalent of the internet in those days. You had to go into the back of the magazine, look at all the adverts and the other companies and send off for their catalogue and wait for about a week. So that was the internet speed in those days.
So the days of allow 28 days for delivery and all that sort of stuff.
And you sometimes got a little free mini as well, which was lovely. And I got that original sort of blue catalogue, bought a few things out of that. And then I think that was it for Games Workshop for a bit until I bought White Dwarf when I was visiting my grandmother in Wellington, Somerset. And didn't look back from that. I really loved a lot of the Chaos stuff that was in there, those Chaos Knights. I remember staring at those for hours on end, thinking I'd better buy some. So I did in the end and painted a few very badly. And and then I started just building armies out of just orc armies. I've always been an army builder. I mean, I've got a 15mm Union and Confederate American Civil War armies. I've done Romans, I've done Greeks, all painted really badly, and painted with a pin. Actually, that's a little side story. Wow. But I used to use a pin to paint with Humbrol stuff because the brushes didn't last 5 minutes the way I cleaned them.
Oh yeah,
so it's much easier to use a pin because they didn't wear out. But yeah, it's just basically an army build. I didn't really game. I just liked the idea of assembling armies. And I think the first thing that caught my eye was, I can't remember what they called it, but they always had a best army competition as one of the gaming competitions. I thought, I quite fancy entering something like that. Nice competition to paint an army. But it was quite a lot of work. I decided after I'd got about halfway through the army, and then Golden Demon caught my eye, and that was really the start of it. I just sort of went to a couple of those, had a terrible experience of not doing very well and seeing how rubbish my stuff was, and then you just sort of kick on from there. But that's, it's taken a long time to get around to that. I mean, most guys are going to Golden Demon in their 20s. I was going to Golden Demon for the first time in my 30s.
Yeah.
So it's quite late for competitors these days. But and then just sort of chugged on from there and gone every year since.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to have coming to it late. Doesn't seem to have injured your ability to put together a decent, particularly duels, as you know.
Duels are
particularly well known for.
As you know, but it's funny because I'm a bit jealous of all the youngsters in that they're starting off at a very young age being able to pick up tips, whereas I've spent far too many years being absolutely rubbish at painting and really only started getting any good in my 30s, whereas a lot of kids now, it'd be their early 20s. So
yeah,
quite jealous of that. And the online tutorials and things, which, I've only really started watching a few of those, but that makes a heck of a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Particularly when you know a bit about it as well, you can tell what they're doing. I think, it is quite difficult watching somebody paint sometimes and translating it into what's really happening. Whereas now I can look at those and go, oh yeah, I know exactly what he's doing. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, that ability to be able to share, isn't it? That kind of sharing technique is something which, when I started, because we've both been at this a rather long time, it just didn't exist. It wasn't that that people weren't sharing. It didn't exist. It was a magazine at best.
No, there were a few things with a 5-stage orc that by the time I got to stage 3, I was wondering what I'd done wrong and why it wasn't working, and now we subsequently know that there were quite a few bits missing. But I can't remember whether I mentioned before, but my early books were black and white. I've got a completely black and white book on modelling. Yeah. No colour photos in it. All black and white illustrations, just words on how to paint with a few little sketches. It's quite, I mean, how on earth anyone would learn from that, I really don't know.
No.
So the resources that are out there now are amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It's kind of almost video or bust now as well, isn't it? There's so many options of people putting...
Well, too many actually. I can find myself actually watching too many of them and just think, well, actually just get on with some painting, because they're quite interesting to watch, and just seeing how other people do it. Yeah. And before you know it, you could sit there and watch that for 2 hours instead of doing some painting.
Well, that's the classic challenge of YouTube, isn't it? Really, it draws you in. There's probably even suggesting loads of more videos to people while they're watching this. What's this? This is coming next, and it'll load up the next one.
The next one, you get teased into that, and before you know it, it's
2 hours is gone.
Painting time's gone. Yeah.
So to get to know a little bit more about you, I do have a number of questions I want to ask you. They're kind of quick fire questions in many ways, and I've got them written down on a lovely lilac bit of paper. So we're going to start off with something which is very close to my heart. Are you a brush licker?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, black or white primer?
Black mostly, yes. A little bit of white on the occasional face, I think, but really still on black.
And that surprises me because of the kind of colour you're getting on your figures. That's coming on a black. In fact, we can kind of see them kind of rotating through.
All on a black.
I
can tell you now that skin is on black.
Wow.
But it's about 50 layers or something ridiculous like that. But yes, I have done pure white on black base coat. It's very silly, really. but I think with a lot of those, I work from a very dark base coat and just build up. So there's very little of it left in the end. But I do. Yeah, I spend quite a lot of time doing the base coats.
But I suppose it leaves, there's always that shadow in the dark areas that you can't reach. Then I suppose
there is. Although actually, in the ogre one that went past, I think I painted it all flesh colour in more or less a mid tone, and then did the shading down, which was absolutely ridiculous. But I was still doing black undercoat. Yeah. I don't know why. But, just habit.
Favourite brush, make and size?
Well, at the moment, I think the brush that's working best on what I'm painting, which is some Zarbag's Gits, which are quite small. And I've got a Winsor & Newton, it's one of their miniature series, and I think it's a size... Oh dear, can't see the thing. It's a smallish one. No, I think it's a size 0.
Yeah, wow.
On there. But yeah, I know a lot of people paint with a 1, but I've never really been able to do that. It's usually a 0 for me, and then get in with a treble 0 on some of the smaller details. Although I'm learning to use a slightly larger brush on those to make sure I've got a good tip. I think I'm a bit hard on brushes actually, because the points seem to go rather quickly the way I treat them. But no, I've got Winsor and Newton. I've got some Rosemary and Co. I've got some Artis Opus as well on my bench just here. But that's a good selection.
Do you tend to prefer the smaller bristles? So like the
I think I find a brush that I'm just comfortable with.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think with all brushes, I've had ones that go off a bit quickly, for want of a better term. Maybe I don't clean them as well as I should, and I've had that with all makes. Yeah. And then others where the point has stayed really, 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 really sharp, and I just stick with that brush.
Yeah.
And until I don't even notice that the point's gone, and then I'm wondering why I can't paint, and then change my brush and go, hang on, it's because the tip's gone.
Yeah.
Because I get so obsessed with a particular brush that's my brush.
I'm a bit like that.
Yeah, it's
I've lost
strange.
I've lost the knack. I just can't paint anymore.
Yeah,
and
I definitely had a few years ago where I actually thought I can't paint fine detail anymore. What's wrong with me? Is it my eyes? Is it my fingers? What is it?
Yeah.
And it was the brush had gone. The tip had just gone, and it wasn't holding the point for more than about 1 second before it would start splitting up again. So, yeah.
Who would you say, or what would you say your biggest influence is when it comes to your models?
What, in terms of people or?
Open question.
Wow. There's too many now. I mean, it used to be that you just looked at one or two people's work in the old days because you didn't see very much of it. Whereas now there's just an amazing list of stuff going through Instagram.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of it's rather depressing actually because it's so good. You just look at it and go, I can't do that. I can't do that. You just think, I can't do that one. Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I save pictures of stuff, and it is just very, very inspirational. And there's too many to mention.
Yeah.
There really are. But you just look at stuff and think, wow, that is absolutely amazing. I've really got to try and paint like that, or try and put more contrast in, or get my skin tones better like that. Just so much fantastic stuff that you see on a day-to-day basis. Whereas, go back 20 years, there might be a handful of colour pictures in White Dwarf, and that's all you would see.
Yeah.
No internet. So that was your inspiration. You just didn't see enough to actually know what was out there.
I'm with you on the Instagram one. That's probably probably where I find my biggest.
It's just amazing. I mean, the number of screen grabs I'm doing every day. It just fills up my phone. I've got to tip it out again because it just fills up. It's always telling me I've got no more space. So I empty it, and then within about another week, I've taken so many shots of pictures off Instagram that it just fills it up so quickly.
Now, a bit more of a contentious question. Open or first past the post competitions?
Well, nearly all my experience is first past the post, but I can see the merits of both. I think they've both got their stresses.
Yeah.
First past the post, I think in terms of a cheeky win is a bit more satisfying, but it can also be the most frustrating because if you end up in a class that's just bedecked with stellar painters and you can just get unlucky, or as I found, you can get lucky as well. So it swings and roundabouts. But I've been to very few. I think I've been to the Euro Militaire as it was 2 or 3 times, and that's about it in terms of open. So I've not really got a lot of experience of it. But they've still, you still got the nerve-wracking. What have I got? What have I got?
Yeah.
But there's nothing quite like the tension of first past the post.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That kind of, because there are so few winners, the 3 or that I think does adds to the kind of that feeling of pressure, but also that feeling of once if you do get a trophy.
It gives you an extra buzz. It's probably not fair. It isn't fair on a lot of painters, and it is really rough. But there's nothing quite like it.
So, Mini, you're most proud of?
I think I've still got two I really like, and they're the one's from 2013, where I was with you staring at the cabinets. The two ogre ones, the dual eye for an eye, or fatal extraction, as I like to call it now, and the ogre hunter one. I'm just very, very fond of both of those. If I had to rescue them from a fire, I'd probably grab those two first.
Yeah. Eye for an eye, here you go. That's one of them on screen now. Yeah, there's just so much character in those two pieces. And actually, if we talk about it long enough, I think the hunter might even come around next. But yeah, they are a really great pair of.
I think that's the duel I'm probably most proud of in terms of animation. I think that was pretty much spot on for me. Maybe not my best painting on that duel, but that hunter as well. I really, really just like the character of that, and it's unusually for me a static model. So I don't do so many of those these days. But yeah, I just really, really liked that model and really enjoyed painting it as well.
That's really good. No, I it's probably one of my favourites of yours. I think that hunter. It's just something about that kind of the way he's just kind of cocked his head and he's just standing there, looks absolutely total badass. You know, there's brilliant. So I know you're a big fan of the duel. My question, dual or single figure, is probably a bit of a moot point for you. Look at all the duels kind of showing up and up and up.
Let me think.
But what draws you to the duels?
I think my biggest, I mean, when I was growing up and getting into modelling, it was all about dioramas. And if I go right back, I've got a feeling that if anyone knows what this book is, I remember getting this book from my library, which was American Civil War battles, and they're all drawn out with lots and lots of very, very small figures, and every single battle was drawn out, and so it was a double spread for each battle with little figures about, must be 5-6 millimeters high, so it's a bit like a war game scene. And I just pored over that book for hours and hours and hours, and even drew some of my own versions. I did a Battle of Hastings and a Roman battle and quite a few other things, and even did some fantasy ones as well. And I think that was all part of the with the Airfix figures as well. It all just sort of fitted together. And then I still remember the first things that lured me into when I bought military modelling. It was always about the dioramas in there. So I'm really a diorama person, and some of the first things I did with models was to build little dioramas using plasticine for the base and painting over the top of that, and basically getting whole box sets of figures out and using those. I did trenches for the First World War in plasticine, and had Germans versus British, and I converted a Roman castle from Airfix into the Alamo, and converted Napoleonic figures into the Mexicans, and used the cowboys as the defenders. And that I've thrown that away, sadly, a long time ago. I think it just fell apart. But yeah, it was always about dioramas, and obviously a duel is a small diorama and is a manageable project to do in a year. But if I could, I would do some bigger, more serious dioramas, because that was really what drew me into the hobby. It was just the thought of building little scenes and making the figures interact. Yeah,
telling stories. I think it's I kind of, I know that feeling well, and I've done a couple of duels in the past, and I would love to revisit. And actually, just kind of seeing some of these come up now, I think just always kind of whets that appetite for trying to be able to be a bit more descriptive. It's the fun of
besqueaking. You don't have to do too much to a figure to sometimes turn it into something else, and to get the figures interacting and telling little stories all over the place. And that's what I really sort of get a buzz out of. And when it clicks, when you know you've got them in the right position, that's just really good fun.
So, fantasy or sci-fi?
Not sure. There's some of each coming up. I think whatever takes my fancy. I really haven't got a strong leaning either way. I like both, and I really, nothing pops into my head. a nice figure's a nice figure, and you can do a nice duel with either.
Yeah. It's all about the story, about being able to kind of have something kind of interacting. Yeah.
Character of the figure, there's good ones either way. So no, I don't lean one way or the other.
Build first, then paint, or paint bits and put it together afterwards.
I try and have sub-assemblies. Certainly try and get as much built as possible, because I've had some absolute clangers when you come to put things together at the end. And typically with Golden Demon, it's always 12 o'clock the night before when you should have really been doing it a week before.
Yeah.
I've had some total shockers where things haven't come together properly, or there was one where I had a chain that I had to sort of put into place and actually managed to snap it in the middle. So I was actually trying to knit the links of a chain together about 1 o'clock in the morning, wishing I'd done it a week previously. That sort of stupid thing. But no, usually even with some of the jewels, you'll find it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, that I've got a little bit of base around the foot of one character and another bit of base around another, and then there might be 3 or 4 little subtiles that I paint, and then it all comes together, and obviously you just have to fill in the gaps and sort of because there are too many inaccessible bits, particularly if you've got a load of junk on the base. So definitely some sub-assemblies, but try and keep it to a minimum.
There's a lesson there for me. I think I like that, even with a bit of the base on the foot, because that then stops it looking like the model's like not quite sitting in the.
So that one there, that one, the orc had base already built onto his foot, whereas actually the blooming ogre who's jumping, he was on a piece of wire, and of course when I stuck him into it at the end, he was floating. So then you're immediately into the okay, let's get a bit of sand and PVA together and pack it in around his foot, and then wait for that to dry and paint it. So there's always that sort of horrible moment when you see it in other people's, don't you, where you can just see a hairline gap underneath a foot. So I always try and sort of, even if it's just a little triangle or a little circle, that you can just sort of have that sorted, so that you're then just sort of making that bit of the base disappear into the model, which is a bit easier to handle.
I think
and it also means that the figures are more likely to be in exactly the position you want as well. Because it's amazing how those wires just don't seem to fit into the hole the way they did when you were doing it before you started painting. It's just so annoying.
And I think the other thing you avoid is that classic of a big blob of super glue still visible.
Oh yes.
Which is another one which just it can be.
Yeah, when it squeezes out and just goes over the side of the boot.
Yeah, you're not.
And then you scrape it off, and then the paint comes off, and then you got to repaint part of the boot.
Yeah. Or you've reached the sod it moment already, and you just take it the next day, or it is the next day. It's like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't fix this now.
Yeah.
Definitely lose marks.
Yeah, it's always 3 a.m, isn't it? Yes.
It's always it never happens kind of with plenty of time to go.
No, there's never enough time.
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on this one already. But when did you first start painting?
Oh, depends to what degree. I mean, I can still picture things that I painted before I was 10.
Yeah,
they're absolutely awful. It's probably in the loft somewhere. I painted that Airfix Julius Caesar. Do anyone remember that? It's quite a large model.
No, I don't think I know that one.
Yeah, there was the Julius Caesar. They had a whole character range. You had Henry VIII and Napoleon. I think I had Napoleon. I think I painted him. But basically, I painted in red and gold. But if I'd have just tipped red and gold over him, it wouldn't have made much difference. It was that bad painted. But that was one of the first models I painted. But yeah, I've been painting. I used to paint the Airfix, HO00 scale stuff. But just colouring in, it's just, even when I was doing my first sort of War Games armies, I just coloured them in. So my first Romans and Greeks, they were just painted in flat colours. And then I think my first army where I did a bit of shading, because they're still using enamels at this point, was that I painted my 15mm American Civil War armies. I painted them in, and I just dry brushed with white enamel. I'd read somewhere about just doing a bit of dry brushing with white enamel at the end, and it just scuffed them up a bit, made them look a bit worn. And also the other thing I experimented with, when you open a tin of Humbrol paint, if you don't mix it, it's like got that juice at the top.
Yeah.
What I used to do was paint the faces white, and then when you opened up the flesh, I used that oily stuff at the top and just blobbed it on the faces, and it was like doing a little wash, like a flesh wash.
Wow.
And it did the faces beautifully. So I started a few little techniques even with Humbrol stuff, and then I think I experimented with watercolors as well before I got onto acrylics, because the acrylics weren't out there either. But don't do watercolors; it's rubbish. They crumble off.
And they reactivate as well, don't they? So whenever they get wet, they resuspend in the water.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, they've never got wet, but I have got a couple in my cabinet, and the paint has started to degenerate and just sort of flake off.
I think sometimes people use them as washes on faces and that sort of thing. Once it's all been kind of painted, if you want to kind of get a bit of red onto the nose, but you want it to be really subtle and you want to be really in control. Sometimes people will use a red watercolour because you can take it back off again really easy and really work it.
Yeah, I suppose so, yes. Yeah.
But it will reactivate, so you kind of have to make sure you give it a bit of a varnish afterwards.
I do remember doing some, again, American Civil War Army. I did the horses in watercolour because I did that over white. Again, it was like using a wash. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure. I better go and check my cabinet afterwards. I think I must have varnished them afterwards. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I did. I think I varnished everything, actually.
Gloss varnish for back in the day.
That's held it on. But again, it was like a nice wash. It's sort of, you got darker in the recesses, so it worked quite well. Yeah. Whereas, flat horse in Humbrol, some chestnut brown just looked awful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why people use kind of oil paint so much, isn't it, for horses anyway, because they're not easy to paint.
Yeah, yeah. Well, looking back at, I have got an old colour book on modelling and painting, and the standard of painting there is just, and this was the pinnacle in this book, and it's dreadful. But that's because of the enamels, I assume. It's just very little shading. Yeah. You can't do layers and layers. Well, I suppose you could, but just involved too much paint mixing. But the standard of stuff, I was looking at one the other day and I just laughed. It's just awful.
And people's expectations have changed as well, haven't they? As well, that's the other thing that's just changed over the years.
Well, when you think what the top end is like now, and then I look at that book and you just think, wow. Yeah. Anybody would think that was a joke if I showed them that book now.
Yeah. I think things have definitely changed a lot, but it's I think you've evolved, and that's why you're still there, bringing in the trophies.
I'm still trying. Yeah, I'm still trying to evolve myself.
So it's
it's good fun. It's good fun trying to keep up with all you youngsters.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah, everybody's a youngster compared to me. Yeah, one of those things where you do start thinking, God, how did I get to this age? And how come I'm not as good as some of the really good people, considering how long I've been doing it. So, it is funny sometimes. Yeah.
I think now that the hobby is mature enough that there's space for kind of more professionals, outside of like heavy metal, which there's I think that changes the whole climate for painters. So if you once you get to that point where you're painting professionally, the world's your oyster. You might never be going around in your Lamborghini or Ferrari, because the money's not quite in it. But the amount of time you spend purely painting must really help you evolve and just keep growing.
I only paint one or two models a year sometimes, maybe one in a year. Yeah. And I keep seeing people on Instagram, and they seem to be painting something new every week, which again is quite depressing in a way. Yeah. You can see how they're evolving. They've probably painted in a year more than I've painted in my entire life. which shows in the end. That's it's the hours that you put in, and I think that's the frustration sometimes when you don't get as much time as you'd like. That you're almost having to re-educate yourself how to paint. And I've even heard Dave Soper after he's not painted for a few months, and you sit down and you think, oh, how do I do this? And why isn't it doesn't seem to be working, or it doesn't seem to be working as you remember? And it does happen, whereas these other guys are painting constantly. And it's just second nature to them. I still struggle a lot. There are some days I just think, what have you just done? That is rubbish. Do it again.
And that's it, but doing it again is probably also, you keep pushing yourself, don't you? That's it, you've got to keep pushing yourself, even if you don't get the time to do it. And I suppose you probably also spend a lot of time on getting, the scene right. So if a lot of what you're doing is a mini diorama every year, there's a lot involved in that, more than just you're painting another figure. So,
there's a lot of micro adjustment. I know I've sat down many an evening with the bits, and at the end of an hour and a half, I'll have just blue tacked a few bits and thought, is it better 1 millimeter that way or 1 millimeter the other way, and still not come to a conclusion. And I'll have another look at tomorrow night, and you get virtually nowhere. But that's the sort of level of detail you're getting to with some of the models, that you just feel, no, it's not quite right. They're still too far apart, still too close. The angle's not quite right. Got to get the angle of the head right. Got to get the eyes meeting. All of that sort of stuff. It's not easy. And then you've got to make the base work to do that. And that's why I find the sub assemblies where you've got part of the base attached, that does make it a lot easier, because you come to sort of plonk them in with their nice bit of wire sticking out their foot. And if you're a millimeter off, it makes all the difference. It can absolutely wreck a duel.
Right. Well, Mark, thank you for that. It's been really good talking to you, and
you're welcome.
Hopefully, we'll meet up again once everything is allowed, and catch up at a Golden Demon maybe.
Absolutely, next year, definitely.
Indeed. Right.
Okay.
Cheers, Mark. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
See you all out there.